let's talk about China, because we had Xi Jinping speaking to the World Economic Forum, the Davos people, right? The people who actually run the world, who all decide to get together every single January and say, well, let's do something about climate change. How big's your private jet? You know these people, right? Now, of course, in the era of Zoom, he didn't have to be there, but the message is really important because this was a keynote speech, essentially a speech being given by a nation that is more than willing to see itself as not just superpower, but front of the pack.
To build small circles or start a new Cold War, to reject, threaten or intimidate others, to willfully impose decoupling, supply disruption or sanctions, and to create isolation or estrangement will only push the world into division and even confrontation. State-to-state relations should be coordinated and regulated through proper institutions and rules.
Stephen, what the hell does that mean? The second part about that they should be regulated, which of course means what? Everyone should go through the UN, which we have now slowly but surely taken over, be it the World Health Organization, be it the Human Rights Committee, and by we I mean, of course, they.
Well, look, my first take from that was clearly there are no mirrors in President Xi's home because all of the things he said shouldn't happen, his country and the Chinese Communist Party are actually doing, whether it's bullying and coercing Australia, intimidating Taiwan, intimidating Vietnam, intimidating the American forces who are just peacefully sailing through international waters. I mean, they've just recently authorised that their Coast Guard, and the word Coast Guard you've got to take with a grain of salt, but they're now allowed to fire on fishing vessels, from Vietnam or the Philippines or Indonesia. So, I mean, China are engaging in every single one of the activities that he is saying shouldn't happen. Yes, he will want to try and regulate, and when I say regulate, or international treaties, international norms. The problem is China have consistently now displayed over the last 5 years they will not comply with a treaty they sign. They will not comply with the free trade agreement they sign. They will not comply with the international rules of the sea. They will not comply with the economic zones that are set out by all of these institutions. So China about as two-faced as you can get when it comes to this sort of conversation. And why the president of a country that has engaged in such disgraceful behaviour in Hong Kong or with its own citizens in the Uyghurs is even invited to attend says a lot about the sort of people who gave the invitation and who are willing to sit there and listen to it.
And that's the main game, isn't it, James? Which is that we have seen the corporate class globally say, who cares about the human rights thing? There's a dollar to be made. There's one to be found, right? And that in and of itself is that it wasn't just a presence, it was the main speech for the people who constantly look the other way about the behaviour of China and its leadership, but would all, of course, have led up as loudly as possible to scream about the former president democratically elected in the United States.
Well, that's right. I mean, I tell you what, new year, new me, and here I am agreeing with everything that Stephen Conroy just said. So, will this era of comedy last? Who knows? We will see.
Unity. Biden unity, baby.
Biden unity. Hey, come on, man. But seriously, though, this whole thing, what you talk about, Paul, about, the corporate class, they had for the last 30 or 40 years tried to make a deal with China, and they assumed that the music would never stop. But the music is now stopping, and we see what China has in mind. And, they say, oh, well, the world should be regulated. But we say, oh, well, so, follow the WTO. They say they don't want to follow the WTO. What they want is to reset the entire international system around institutions that they control. That's what the Belt and Road is all about. That's what all of these other things that they're doing is about. What they want to do is they want to make everybody along the Belt and Road, everybody they deal with, including Australia, vassal states that essentially pay tribute up to China. They get rich off of us and we get poor. That's what they want to do. That's the world system that they see. Now, it's very interesting that a few days after, within 72 hours of Joe 10% for the big guy Biden being inaugurated as president, we had suddenly China flying these jets and so on very, very close into Taiwan airspace, just testing just testing, sending a message. And the real dangerous thing here is you've got a country that is portraying itself as the victim. Oh, we're the victim of all your bullying. You know, we're being mean to us on the playground of international trade or whatever. You know, but yet they have very big, aggressive claims. And we have somebody in the White House now who may be very willing to indulge that victim mentality. We know from history where that leads.